TFC friends. Thank you for tuning into our discussion today. I'm Ruth, and along with Nick Holt, we are the hosts of a project by the Foot Collective that aim to help our tennis and our paddle communities stay healthy, fit, and pain-free for longer in order to enjoy the sports that we love. If you're not familiar with our mission at the Foot Collective, our intention is to help people restore their lower limb health, beginning with the feet. And as such, we are advocates of using natural footwear to build healthy, strong, mobile, pain-free, and resilient feet over the longevity of our lives. We also say that a foot conversation is a whole body conversation. And so we also intend to explore a variety of topics around lower limb health, beginning with the navel and down to the feet, in order to bring the best possible information to tennis and paddle players so that we can enjoy our sports for a longer period of time. And today I'm here having a discussion with Matthew Gervase, who is a lifelong athlete and also a tennis player. And we're going to discuss the evolution of his footwear and the role that natural footwear play in his tennis life today. And we define natural footwear at TFC by considering the 4 F's. Is the shoe foot shaped, meaning is it wider at the forefoot than it is at the heel? Is the shoe flat, meaning that there's no wedge or ramp from heel to toe? Is the shoe flexible? Can you roll up the shoe in your hand like maybe a cinnamon bun? And is the shoe, can you feel or sense the ground beneath you? So we'll be discussing that today, and we hope you enjoy. Okay, Matthew, thank you for joining us today.
Glad to be here.
Okay, so I wanted to I've already kind of prepped everybody what we're going to be talking about today. Your background as a lifelong athlete, how you got into tennis, and what you love about tennis. So can you just kind of give us a little bit of your story about sports and tennis and what you love about it and how you got here?
Okay, well, I grew up playing sports. I mainly played baseball and basketball when I was young in an organized sense. I played since I was about 5 years old. So I played that through high school. And then in college, I played baseball for 4 years. So that was always the way of kind of having a team sport element. At the same time, when I was young, I used to play soccer as well until I was, 12 or so. And I played other little sports. I used to like football, but my parents wouldn't let me play. And I played a lot of ping pong, but I didn't play much tennis, certainly not in the organized sense. I would maybe go hit the ball around, a couple times a year, but it was a pretty active environment. And I used to ski when I was younger as well. My parents were big into water skiing, and then we would do snow skiing. So I had a pretty athletic background, and the organized component of it was usually baseball and basketball. And so when I finished after college, then I pretty much didn't have a really specific sports structure, so to speak. I probably played basketball more in a pickup sense.
You rode crew too, didn't you?
I also rode crew.
You blocked it out.
Yeah, after I finished up in college in baseball, when I was a grad student, pretty much, I rode 2 years of crew, which was kind of like, I think even more of a new thing than tennis. So it was kind of a sport that I was recruited because I was tall and athletic, and it also gave me a real structure to kind of think about setting goals and working hard and learning new skills, which were very new. And I also appreciated the team element. So we got to travel, and I grew up in California, so in Sacramento, went to school in Long Beach, and then we got to travel and we're all over the place, including like Boston, Philadelphia, all these different places, and got to compete against other elite athletes. We weren't a great program. We were a small program, but it was a good chance as well. So yeah, that was another big element of my sports evolution. And so it was really, tennis was kind of at the end of the road when I started playing a little bit more seriously in grad school after taking a lot of years off. So I was probably mid-30s and not having a real doing much of any organized sport for 10 years probably. Mm-hmm. And then was kind of just trying to be more active in grad school, and started taking clinic type classes and stuff, but not really playing any organized type of leagues or anything. And it was only when we moved to Alabama that I got a chance to started playing in the USTA league system, and so that was much more a new level up, because you're kind of like winning or losing, in the sense of, I wasn't playing in that sense anymore. You would maybe win a point or something, but like winning and losing, having to deal with the challenges of that, and then also embracing that aspect of setting goals, and you're on a team and stuff. And it was a new type of league experience for me. So I've been playing more seriously in the league sense, and getting different rackets like we have here, and even buying a ball machine, and getting pretty serious about my commitment. I mean, it maybe strikes some people who don't have that type of background, but it was pretty natural. Like if you're going to commit to something. When I was young, like my parents had a pitching machine and a batting cage, and we would train seriously for long hours. So I've kind of done a little bit of that with tennis at the same time, being older and having a job and stuff. But still, I like to play probably 2 nights a week in our league, and then maybe on the weekend as well. So probably play 3-4 nights a week. And now in the summer, doing that as well. And I also am pretty serious into like skating. So I like to skate a lot. And so I find the balance between skating and tennis being the 2 main things that I'm doing right now, as far as like seriously pushing my development of, setting goals and stuff like that, and failing, losing, also falling down, in regards to skating and stuff, and, trying to stay healthy and fit as you start to do things with more complexity and, difficulty.
When you took your first clinic or your first class, what was the inspiration? What was it that struck you about wanting to have a class in tennis? Because I think I remember you taking a class while you were in grad school. This is the first time I remember you getting kind of serious about it.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think you and I would probably go hit the ball occasionally when we were first, kind of post grad school, living down south in Long Beach. I remember we would go hit the ball occasionally, and then in Santa Cruz, when we moved there for grad school, it was a new place. So I guess we kind of did that, and maybe had a couple friends who would invite us. I guess I don't really know. I think I maybe just felt the chance to.
You watched a lot of tennis, and you love the beauty of the sport too. So was that an inspiration at all?
I don't think so. I mean, yeah, I've always been a tennis fan, in the sense I watched it growing up. I pretty much watched the 4 major sports, and then I watched tennis as well a lot as a kid. So, but it wasn't that I ever played it until, seriously. I don't know. I think I probably just maybe was around the courts. There's a really nice courts in Santa Cruz. We have a campus that overlooks the Pacific Ocean, and so probably just walking by it on the way to class and stuff, and wanting more variety in my life, and not just going indoors and focusing on being good at whatever I was studying and stuff, but trying to just see something new. And I think I don't really know what the impetus was. And I took those classes and then didn't do much probably for the next 5 years. I just returned to the casual, occasional, hitting with friends and stuff. And it wasn't until we got to Alabama, and we've been here for about 5 years, and I really only we started playing more seriously than on the court. I think going beyond the occasional hitting session, and rallying and playing sets and stuff. And I think kind of like getting used to the rule system and trying to remember everything, you're when you're new to the scoring system and stuff like that, just trying to square that up with when you get tired and stuff like that. So we did that for a couple of years, but it's really only been, about 2 years here that we discovered the tennis community, which is very impressive, because we live in a town that's relatively small compared to what we're used to out west, but it has one of the biggest public tennis centers in the US, 70 plus courts, and it's fairly close by. We don't have a car, so getting around was also a part of just having access to different courts and having court time. And I've read in other places and heard in other places it's quite expensive to play, especially when the weather's not bad or there's not as many private or public courts. And so we discovered that infrastructure, which I'm a big fan of as well. I like to have accessibility to stuff and not have to be like some super specialized. Nowadays youth sport seems like it's so specialized, and kids have to start choosing a sport at the age of 8 or you're younger and stuff like that. I never really liked that, and so I think it was a natural evolution of just my own curiosity in regards to different ways of playing sports. And I think once I got into it, there's a lot of similarities, just like hand-eye contact. You have like the bat or the racket, and then also the serve, which I was mainly a pitcher in a lot of ways growing up, that you have something that's very similar, slight nuances to change the structure of the ball, whether it's, diving or slicing or kind of like going flat into different parts of the box. It's very similar to pitching in that way. So there's a lot of skills that really translate that I have taken to in that regard. And but it's hard to pinpoint an exact time. I think it was just being open to, there's also a social element, so there's a lot of stuff. I mean, it's a big question, and it's not something I can easily, but as I'm trying to talk about, I would say there's also the social element. It's a very popular sport here, as it is in a lot of places, but I mean, it's a very popular sport here in the South. And so there's a big tennis community, and it's affordable. And there's a number of courts that we can go to on our little scooters, on our bikes. We don't have to go, it's not this big time investment or that type of stuff. So there's all those things that I enjoy about it. And then get a chance to come here and play on clay courts, green clay courts, which is kind of fun. It's a different type of tactile experience, which reminds me a lot of being on the baseball field. It's one of the things I like is, you can't really spit on a tennis court, but growing up as a baseball player, you're out on, you're getting dirty, you're on a natural surface. You're eating sunflower seeds and spitting and doing all that type of stuff. And I just think that, that's something I appreciate, as well as not always being on a hard court surface when it's super hot and stuff. And, it's slightly different, but there are similarities between being on a natural field. And now every time I watch, sports on TV, one of my biggest complaints, as you know very well, is just the shift towards AstroTurf, fake grass fields, and a lot of American sporting surfaces, everything from professional sports to down to kids sports. So I like tennis is largely played, and it's played on a variety of surfaces. I never played on grass, but I like the different types of surfaces and the way it has a certain geometry, and there's a lot of things that are appealing about it that allow it to be a little bit more of a daily experience, as opposed to something you do. You can play it mainly on a daily sense, which is like with baseball, something to just do for a couple hours, and you don't have to be super exhausted. I mean, you can be in tennis if you play singles or doubles. There's a lot of different types of things. So I like the fact that you can kind of play at a lot of different levels as well, but it does have a team element. So.
How about injuries? I think I was surprised in one of our conversations that you're one of the few people I know that hasn't really sustained a lot of chronic pain or injury in your sports throughout your life. Have you experienced any issues with your feet, or what's your history with injuries? Take us briefly right up through like today.
No, I never had any injuries growing up in regards to my feet. The only significant injuries are I broke my hand playing baseball once, which was, in the middle of a season. It was in the preparation for the season. So that was a significant just mental challenge to come back from having a cast on your hand and then, rehabbing, but it was only 6 weeks. And then it was a relatively fluid type of transition back to playing again. The other significant injury I had was I strained my hamstring quite badly, and that took a long time. That was the most difficult injury to come back from. These were in college. Prior to that, I never really had problems with my feet or sprained ankles or anything like that. I never wore braces or anything. I was always fairly light on my feet, I guess. So whatever the reasons are, but those were the injuries where I strained my hamstring and then had a significant rehab in order to gain confidence in the ability to not favor it and have it. It was wrapped, and there was constant physical therapy, which I'm not used to. I'm not used to doing a lot of physical therapy. And part of tennis is I like to kind of show up, do a light warm up, mainly just getting on the court, but I'm not into like being super structured, because I've had so much of that in my life growing up. In college, it was a constant challenge to enjoy playing sports at a high level, and then having to put in this significant amount of time, prior to going to a game, a 3-hour game, and you show up 3 hours early. I mean, that's a lot of time in your life once you get to a point where you're thinking about balance and not being a professional athlete per se. When I was young, I wanted to be a professional athlete, but by the time I got to college, I pretty much understood that I would like sports to fit in a more holistic sense or something along those lines. And so when I did start playing tennis, the one injury that I sustained was it was right when I got back in, and I was playing my first serious match. I mean, we've been playing quite a bit, and I signed up for USTA, and I think it was a league experience, and so I think it was just upping the challenge, and being the adrenaline and getting back into are you win or you lose, you make mistakes, and you're doing all these types of things, and I hadn't done that for years. In a sense. And so I hurt my knee, some type of knee strain. I don't know what it was, but it prevented me from playing for 3 months. And that was a significant, I didn't know what happened. I thought it might be very debilitating. And I just took it one day at a time. And I was wearing unnatural footwear. I was wearing Adidas type shoes. I had transitioned. I was kind of thinking more of a wide toe box, but at that point we weren't, on our path towards more natural forms of footwear. So it was big Adidas clunky shoes, and I'm sure that had a role that was playing in it, because after that I abandoned those gradually. I think that's when we started to make our change. But I did strain my knee in some way that I don't know. I never saw anybody about it. I mean, I'm not a fan of going to the doctor, unless absolutely necessary. I appreciate doctors for all their work, but I mean, I was able to get back up to speed. I don't have any knee issues right now. I'm more cognizant of my knee in that sense. In like a deep squat or something along those lines, I can feel the tendons or the ligaments or whatever it is a little bit more about, maybe it was moving around or getting out of something. And I don't entirely know. I don't focus on it a whole lot, because it's not an issue at all when I play. I don't favor it. I don't even think about it. So that was the one injury that I had to overcome. And I think the other thing, just playing with tennis, maybe sometimes upper back, tension. It seems like I have more tension and just stiffness, and I have to work on just doing more stretching or rolling that out. I mean, and maybe that's from like just tension patterns. When I was young, I had constant, not constant, but it's pretty significant pain, when you're doing an unnatural movement like throwing a baseball. You have a lot of pain in your elbow and shoulder. And so there was I would ice my shoulder all the time with just a type of ice thing that you rub on it. I mean, it was a pattern that you had right now. And I know there's a lot more discussion about how to deal with pain like that, but the tennis movement hasn't caused me any type of thing, because you're not releasing a baseball like you are. It's a similar motion, but there's no absolute, and I might be a little bit tired from serving a lot, but I never feel any of the pain that I had in my right elbow and right shoulder, which is my pitching arm. But that probably has some tension patterns about, holding tension in the back. And then, so that's the other thing that I would mention, but it's never been debilitating where I can't play. It was the knee injury that was the one thing that I had to really step back and, stop playing for 3 months and slowly create strength and flexibility and remove pain and that type of stuff.
So you were originally playing, so let's switch to shoes then. You were originally playing in a New Balance and Adidas and maybe a Nike type of shoe. And then you had you rehabbed your knee yourself by taking it slow, one day at a time. I watched you slowly gain strength back in the knee. It seems like you came back stronger than ever. Take me through your evolution about your shoes and what you play in now. We have 3 pairs of shoes with all different types of stack height or cushioning. They're all 0 drop. But just tell us about your evolution going from one type of shoe to a natural shoes to natural shoes, and then take us through your specific shoes and what you use them for.
Yeah, I think I had mainly I was playing with these Adidas shoes, which had a wide toe box, and they were stiff though. And they were specifically tennis shoes, tennis court shoes, which I'd play in whatever when I was growing up. I had specific shoes for basketball and baseball, but I would just use a general kind of cross trainer shoe that we played with for a long time, Nike. And I never had any problems until I hurt my knee. And then from there, I think we started to become more involved with the Foot Collective and seeing what you were doing. And I think I bought these 0 shoes, which was a significant departure from anything I'd used before. And of course I could walk around with them, and that was no problem, walking around with them and playing on the court. It was no problem in the initial sense. it did take some readjustment because you can't, if you really heel strike hard or you run towards something, it's quite, you're going to feel it in those types of shoes. So that's a shoe that I use mainly to play. And I think when I got back to playing again seriously, I believe I used an Ultra, which it's the Ultra Solstice, and it's a stack height of 23 millimeters. It's a zero drop shoe.
Still pretty flexible.
Very flexible. I mean, you feel the ground.
Just real quick, the Zero has about 7.5 millimeters of cushion, and I think it's like 5 millimeters if you take the insole out, which is pretty thin.
Yeah. And so this shoe is, it's zero drop as well. Like, so it's very similar. It's very minimalist shoe. I noticed from the very beginning how just light the shoe is. I mean, this is a light shoe. It still allows you to be much more wild in your movements. You don't have to be as balanced. I don't know that I'm super wild when I wear the any of the shoes, but like it has 23 millimeters of stack height, so there's significant cushioning. But at the same time, you feel the ground. It's much more flexible. It's just lightweight. I mean, the middle. It's, if you talk about natural, that type of shoe, it's foot shaped. It has a big toe box. It's zero drop. It has a pretty decent ability to feel the ground. If you're playing on a hard court, I use those mainly on a clay court right now because I like the kind of pattern of the shoe to kind of not prevent slipping and stuff. But I use that mainly on a hard court, and I stopped using it because it wore out too quickly. I mean, it's not designed at all as a court shoe. It just wore out. I don't want to spend hundreds of dollars, and there's a whole, shoes are problematic and where they're sourced, like everything, so I don't want to, be buying them constantly and all this type of stuff too. So
can I interrupt for a second?
Yeah.
What do you like about feeling like, so we talk about feeling the ground beneath you, and you've experienced a lot of different kinds of shoes. What is the benefit for you of feeling the ground? Like, why do you like that?
I don't know. I don't have a specific answer. I think the main thing is part of a larger experience of your movement on the court, which is more lightweight. I'm very cognizant of the different types of experiences because I also skate and I have different types of skates, and I come from a skiing background, and you have all these different types of feelings of what's on your feet and how. I mean, I think shoes are just so clunky and rigid, and I think there's a real argument to be made for moving away from wherever you're at on the spectrum. Like when I go back and I had still had a couple of pair of New Balance. I really like the color, but they were super bulky. I mean, that's so much support around the heel. I mean, it was almost like I was using it. It'd be a shoe I would use to skate on. I would put skates on it because you need more, obviously a little bit more like when you have a big skate, an inline skate. And so like it had that type of support, and that was completely unnecessary in my experience for what you're doing on the court. It just was excess material. It was so rigid in regards to the ground that you couldn't feel anything. You couldn't push off. You couldn't, use your foot in a variety of ways to access the ground forces. So that to me is the argument that I would make for it. Not like I need some, like you could go down all the way. So now I play recently in this, it's I think called Topo, and it looks somewhat like a modern shoe, but it's zero drop. It's 16 millimeter stack height. You feel the ground a lot more. It's foot shaped. So it's more, you definitely feel the ground more than you do in the, for instance, in the Ultras. But I would say they're similar. It holds up well because part of it's just the idea, like if you're playing on a hard court, which I mainly do. I mean, it's the first time ever that I played on clay courts here. We play maybe 30% on clay courts, 70% on hard courts. So the hard courts just it's much harder on your body. It's much hotter. It's going to wear your shoes down. So all those factors are a consideration, in regards to how I'm playing tennis. And so the Topos is more, to me, it's a really nice shoe that still gives you much more support compared to probably the Zero, like around the back of the heel. But it's like, it's almost similar to a Zero. I mean, what's it called? The TFC?
It's an ST.
No, the little shoes that we have from.
The FC .05s, which is like a water shoe.
It has this bottom part to it, which is always a potential danger because you could catch your foot, especially on the hardcore. There are times when I barely catch it and it grips, and then your foot is gonna potentially fall over. And if you have issues with ankle sprains, this shoe is a potential danger. Like I never had any issues with ankle sprains, but I'll catch myself slipping or catching my foot and having to, radically adjust. And I think I come from a background that had a lot of balance training in it. So I don't roll my ankle really, but I would if I had problems with it, because that's the one dangerous. It has a big bottom part to it, the sole of it, whatever. But then above it, this is very similar to, a water sock type TFC natural shoe that, so it's really this bottom thing that also then has a significant, you can see I'm wearing through it, but I've been playing with these for 6 to 8 months, fairly consistently on hardcore, which is the other thing that I recognize. I mean, I would say that the Zero sole is amazing. It's very small. You're not going to catch it nearly as much because it's very, right here, it's very small, and you don't have like a big bulky divide between this part and then the actual part of the shoe up here. So this has a good amount of, this is a great shoe. I've played more with it. I still don't play with it when I, play my matches, but I'm interested in experimenting with other shoes because I think I definitely could. I don't think there's anything wrong with this. And actually the sole is incredible. It still hasn't worn. I've been wearing these in all different ways for, I don't know, 1.5 years. Yeah. And they simply don't wear out. Maybe if I played more consistently, but it's an amazing sole. And it's a really great blend. I think you definitely have to be transitioning and doing stuff. But those other shoes that I mentioned are shoes that I think anybody who's started their path towards better foot health could transition into pretty seamlessly. The Ultras are a good shoe. They have like I mentioned up here, it's a little bit more support. There's a lot more padding. It's not like even the Topos, which doesn't have padding on the interior. It just really has kind of almost like a water sock type.
It's like a knit. It's like almost like a really thick knit.
Yeah. And so there's a significant difference here is that this has a lot of padding on the interior, but it's still amazingly light shoe. It's a really good shoe. I feel good playing in it. Especially when I'm playing on clay, and I feel like it gives me a little bit more kind of
like grip
and stuff. Yeah. And then it has the front part of the shoe is then very minimalist. There's no padding up here. There's a little bit of plastic on it, and then there's this part here because it's mainly like a cross training shoe for what I can understand, people in the gym, like doing CrossFit type stuff. And so it doesn't translate well because this part's going to wear out pretty quickly. It doesn't have a great sole, and it doesn't have, it still has a pretty good lip to it. So if you're catching your foot on a hard court, you definitely, I think, have more of a capacity. I don't think I've ever done that much. I think that's the one drawback of like this shoe is that it has a pretty significant, like this sticks out quite a bit from the top part. So this part can definitely catch on a hard court. And if you have any, problems of rolling your foot, you could roll your foot, despite the fact it has a lot of other positive attributes to it. So those are the main shoes I play with right now.
And just for a little bit of like back history, when we had the conversation with Tim Brennan, who is the guy who patented the sole for the Vivo Barefoot natural shoe, was a tennis player. And that was the one thing he talked about when it came to ankle rolling. He had a history of chronic rolling his ankles. And the minute that he was able to take that lip away and play in a shoe that was closer to being barefoot like this, he said he immediately felt more stable, as if he would not roll his ankle at all. And I think that is one of the important things, if you have a history of ankle rolling, to be aware of that.
Yeah, I haven't played in the Vivo barefoot ones, which seem to be super, like where the sole kind of just like hugs, and it's part of like the almost like it's much more like a sock, how it fits your foot. And there's still a big divide. Like this part is very close to like a water sock they would wear at the beach or scuba diving, but then this part here is definitely a more of a normal sole that really stands out. So like I said, this is the shoe that I play with consistently on hardcore, and as my movement becomes more aggressive, as I get better and play better players and stuff like that, I notice that I don't play with the other one on hardcore, so maybe that one has it, but I do think this lip stands out quite a bit. And there are moments when you just barely catch it. Like you'll see professional tennis players do a micro movement that doesn't seem to be like much, and it's quite a debilitating ankle sprain or types of things. And so I felt myself have to have my body come over and completely abandon the tennis movement to not hurt myself. Generally, I'm not playing at a level that I can recover, so to speak, and still play the point. It's not like I fall over on the ground and protect myself from debilitating injury, but I do come over. My body weight comes over, and I have to like suddenly readapt, which is what you do. But I'm used to doing that. Like for instance, when I skate, like all of a sudden it's like you got to move your body so you don't have a debilitating fall that's gonna like land hard on an elbow or a shoulder or a wrist or something. So it's that experience that you have to be ready with. So I would always say is the potential danger of a shoe like this, which has a smaller stack height, but still has a pretty significant sole compared to this part right here, which is nice and gives you enough support on the top. As you lace it, for the most part, you can still, I don't slide or do anything, like crazy on hard courts and that type of stuff. So if you're into that type of thing, I don't know. I think that's a discussion that you have to have with somebody who's playing that type of style of tennis.
Well, I think this is a good place to wrap it up. Any closing comments or anything else you want to say before we sign off?
No, I think that's it. I enjoyed being invited here to talk about my experience. So
will you come back?
Yep, I'll be back.
Okay, I'm gonna stick my face in.
Okay.
Thank you, friends.